think. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we're live.
Woo-hoo! Okay. Let's see who's on Facebook now.
Let's see.
My goodness. Okay.
Let's see.
Let's see if it's working. Help me. It says happening now.
It's on.
It's on.
You see it?
Yep. Page, yep.
Let me pull it up on my phone. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, hello, beautiful people. Sorry for the delay. Facebook is trying to suppress. That's what they do. So we're just getting acquainted again. So give us just a couple of moments to get everything set up once again.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
finally figured it out. We're actually live. I'm still looking for your live. I don't see it on Facebook, Audra. So
it just popped up. It said Audra Christian is live now.
okay, yeah, I see it now. It's on your personal page, right? So I'm gonna
share it on mine too.
Say that again, James.
I said I'll share it on my page as well.
Okay, perfect. So let's get this going
here. I look like Joe Biden on this thing.
That's so funny. Yeah, I look extra white myself over here, kind of corpsey, but it's okay. No one can look as bad as Joe Biden. So
yeah. Okay.
All right.
I'm trying to see how long of a lag there is. Okay, there's about a 5-second lag. Okay. So on here there's no lag. When I went to Facebook, there's a lag of like 5 seconds, but I'm pulling a Joe Biden because I'm like, let's see. Audra Christian is live. Can I share it? Please don't delete it. Copy link. Let me put it in the event.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Okay, I feel a lot better now.
See if we can get Elena back on here. She says she's here. Do you see her?
Hold on. Put this into the discussion. Discussion. There we go.
Okay. We're getting everything set up, guys. Just give us a couple more moments.
Worst possible person, which is me, for anything electronic. You can ask my husband how many phones I've broken because I just, it doesn't work. So I'm like, smash. Hi, Elena's here. Uh-oh, James is gone. Okay, now James is gone. Let me call her really quickly. Okay, I'm going to call her really quickly. I'm going to hit mute.
Okay, perfect. So while we get Jennifer on the live, it's just going to be us. So go ahead, Audra. Yeah, take care of that while we wait for her to log in.
You guys talk to people, invite them.
Yeah, we're getting the link out now. So the link is going out. Perfect. Waiting for people to trickle on in.
Logging in. We got a few more viewers hopping on the video, so that's good. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We've been trying at this for about 37 minutes, so just bear with us. We're going to get started as you guys all join the stream here. They're actually calling Jennifer right now to get her on and get her to join as well, and we'll be underway here momentarily.
Yes.
All right. So in the meantime, let's see. My brain has a 5-second lag. Good evening, Kathy and Cassandra and Rashonda. Hi, everybody. It's so funny. I was on a podcast with Cassandra just a few days ago from our Back the Blue days. And we were laughing about how we were actually participating in history. And, we'll probably never make the history books, but we painted the first Back the Blue mural in the nation, right? That was like our claim to fame. We had no idea it was felony level vandalism. We were in so much trouble. But we gave away a lot of the secrets of what we did in our Back the Blue days and how we got a lot of stuff accomplished. It was pretty exciting. I'm going to call it
felony level vandalism when people can paint over the Lincoln Memorial and they call that freedom of speech and freedom of expression.
Yeah. So I expressed myself all over Madison Avenue, all over Madison. Yeah, that was crazy. Okay. Hey, Elena, will you send her the link real quick? She just responded. And then earlier today, I was bragging about how I made really good chicken and I had a lot of schmaltz afterwards, which is a big deal. Okay, the people who cook, it's rendered chicken fat. It's called schmaltz. And anyway, I was talking to her about it. She's like, "Are you Jewish?" I was like, "No, but I speak a lot of Yiddish. It's kind of weird. I don't know why I do."
I'm looking at the chats now. So we got Kathy in the house too. Hey, Kathy. Good to see you, babe.
She's holding Pasco down.
She sure is, with that Pasco watch. I love it. Oh, Sydney Salato is on.
I love Sydney.
Hey, Turning Point Action. I love it. That's my girl right there. Thank you for joining us.
Let's see. As soon as so hey Vanessa, tell people just a little bit about yourself as we wait.
So my name is Vanessa Vasquez Anderson. I am a Hillsborough County resident. I'm a fairly new mama. I have a 2-year-old who keeps me busy. So it definitely is challenging doing all this political activism while, leading that mom life, and then also, doing work in life and balancing it all. So it's been fun though. I love being a mom. And I don't know, I just feel much more passion now that I am a mom to continue on the fight for our freedoms and liberties here. So I'm always kind of doing my thing over here in Hillsborough. And I got my great friend Elena, who this was her brainchild. So I definitely want to give some credit and kudos to Elena. Elena, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone too? Oh, you're on mute, honey.
We can't hear you.
Yep, we can't hear you, babe.
I can't hear her.
Yeah, she's working.
Is she going to type it? Type it in the comments. Now, I know Elena is big into health freedom, and I realized it's actually kind of like the new civil rights movement is the health freedom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, Jennifer is waiting in the waiting room.
Oh, she is. I'm so sorry. Here we go. Hey, Jennifer. Hi.
Excellent.
So how about audio? I'm having, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Adjusting this. All right.
So we're finally live.
Woo!
We're rolling now.
Good job. We made it. A little late.
Like
Better late than never, right?
Yes. And I was about 2 seconds from throwing my computer on the ground, but then I realized I don't have an extra $1,800 to go buy another one. It was like my brain was calculating it. Like, no, don't do it.
I was joking with everyone earlier that it's just blame it on me. We were on that Spanish time. So we always start a little late.
That's funny. Okay, well, real quick, I guess we should just get into it because that's what people are looking for.
Right.
So I had sent the information, basically the run sheet earlier. So I wanted to start out by letting everybody know that deciding to run for any kind of seat, any kind of position is so difficult. And I don't think anybody who has never been close to it or actually done it realized how much it upsets your life. It turns it upside down. You end up living in a glass house. There's slanders, lies, outright attacks. You get attacked by people that used to be friends. I mean, it's really crazy stuff that happens when you run for office. And so but you also get great opportunities as well. But that's all people see. They don't see the other side of it to where it's a sacrifice. So I wanted to thank Jennifer Barbosa and James Judge for running for office, for putting their hand to the task, because I think, it's almost an insurmountable odds to run for office. And I want to thank you guys for actually trying. Okay. I think that's great. And giving it a really good try. And for trying to actually go into public service, because I think this new generation of people running realize that it's actually public service. It's not the public teat. That's a few years ago, it's no longer like that. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you the best candidate for running for CD15. And we'll start with Jennifer Barbosa.
Hi, Audra. Well, first of all, you don't have to thank me at all for running. I enjoy it thoroughly. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it. You have to do what you love, like they say, right? I think President Trump has said that many times. A lot of successful people say that. So running for office, sure, there's some sacrifices involved, but it's worth it. I find that it's really a wonderful exercise in humanity because it forces me to do something I wouldn't normally do, which is really listen to everybody's feedback, especially when I'm going door to door. You have to always keep in mind that everybody has a reason for feeling what they do, and you really have to listen to what their needs and concerns are. A little background: I was raised here in Florida in the Tampa Bay area. I grew up near you. We were talking yesterday. I drove private school there for Crest. After that, I went to University in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I lived in a few different cities around. I lived in New York, but mostly I lived in Los Angeles, while also coming back here quite often to be with my family. Still here. When I was in Los Angeles, at around 2014 is when I first started getting really interested in politics, and I ran for a local office, and I was elected vice chair of what was called Neighborhood Council, and that's where we just help facilitate issues between the really small microcosm of the neighborhood and the local agencies like City Council and LAPD and things like that. Then in 2015, Donald Trump hit the scene, and as soon as he announced that, I heard his announcement speech, I knew that I was going to vote for him. And that's when I first registered to be a Republican. And that's when I really started getting interested in federal politics. I worked on a few different campaigns. And then finally, in 2020, I decided to run for myself. I ran against Adam Schiff. I was living in his district, and it was quite embarrassing to have him up there on TV every day and president and spreading all kinds of lies. So I did a little research and found that there are not actually enough Republicans to win an election if every Republican turns out. So I switched over to independent, or no party preference as they call it there, and gave it my all. I got the most independent votes of any independent candidate in that 2020 primary. I did not win, obviously. And then I moved back here to Florida shortly after that. Continued my work as a paralegal. I'm currently living here in the 15th district, Plant City. And I don't know how much time you want to give me to keep going on about myself. I could go on forever, but I hope some of your questions answer any others you might have.
Yeah. Just take a few minutes. Yeah, that was good. And the irony is that we actually grew up in the same area. So different sides of town, but like St. Pete, the Berg. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, James Judge, go ahead. It is your turn.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on Outnumbered tonight. It's wonderful. I'm glad to be here. I was born and raised in the Tampa area. Born in Clearwater, went to Skycrest Christian, Oak Grove Middle, Dunedin High School. I served in the U.S. Coast Guard, served on a patrol boat in Iraq, and then used my #1 choice to go to Public Affairs A school, and then after that, got to go to Miami. After my time in the Coast Guard, went to ABC News briefly, the affiliate in Gainesville. It was a blast. I got to cover Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators, and being the only conservative in the newsroom, it was challenging, but the 2008 elections were going on, and it was very interesting. Left there, went to Immigration and Customs Enforcement at the end of the Bush administration, and then left there once Obama's team came in, and was back in school using my GI Bill, and got a call from the Office of Secretary of Defense to go to Afghanistan. Went to Afghanistan. It was a 1-year temporary assignment. Served over there on the press desk for ISAF Joint Command, which was the International Security Assistance Force under General David Petraeus. And then when I got done with that, never thought I would run or work in government necessarily again. I started doing consulting on the side. I got a Great Dane. I was enjoying not traveling the world at that time, and saw an ad that said "Must Love Pets in PR." So started working with Blue Pearl Veterinary Partners in Tampa, doing their PR, but still doing consulting on the side. Eventually, about 2015, my PR firm took off to a point where I was able to go out on my own. And then they came on as a client. We had a lot of other clients from veterinary medicine to like Chewy's, Tex-Mex, Taco Bell, Armed Forces Families Foundation, Skyway 10K, worked with a lot of different small businesses, and even started working. I had a friend that I'd known from church, from Calvary Baptist back in the day. Frank Hibbard was running for mayor in Clearwater and asked to work on his campaign. And this is, 2019. At that point, well, this is a little bit before, but October 2019, I talk a little bit about this on the trail. And it's interesting because if you talk too much about your background, people go, oh, you shouldn't talk about that. But my life was kind of not going the way I wanted it to. My marriage wasn't going the way I wanted it to. I wasn't living my life for the Lord. I had like one toe dipped in church, and then the rest of my life was living in the world and drinking heavily on the weekends, doing things that you probably, shouldn't do. And October 2019, I got really serious about things. We were on the brink of divorce, and I just begged the Lord to forgive me. I started doing something that, ironically, I heard it as advice in a bar a long time ago. And I heard it in private school. I heard it at church over and over, but it got through to me, a guy in a bar. And he said, you need to, I asked him, what is the secret to success? He said, read your Bible, tithe, and pray every day. And I started doing that, started applying it to my life. And the Lord has absolutely healed a broken marriage. I talk about my faith because it's important from our government standpoint. Our declaration says that we believe in the laws of nature and nature's God. We believe that men are created equal. They're endowed with certain rights by their creator that include life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. I mean, the right to life is the first thing we established. March 17, 2020 is election day in Clearwater. And that's when they started the shutdowns, really, with St. Patrick's Day. And as we're kind of watching what's happened, I did my first podcast on March 20th, and it really was about that point. I came on, and I knew it might have been the day before. I said, do yourself a favor. If you don't have an online presence, make sure you have an online presence. But March 20th or 21st, I do my first full, and I'm begging Governor DeSantis not to shut down. I too supported President Trump. I voted for him in every single election. Voted for him in the primaries and both generals. And I will vote for him again. But I was begging Governor DeSantis to not shut down the state of Florida. We knew on that day, this is March 2020, we knew the virus had a 99.97% survivability rate. We knew that the number one symptom was not knowing that you had a symptom. So I was pleading with them not to shut down and just asking people to take into consideration, like, what would happen if, you're kicking volunteers and family members out of the hospitals. There's nobody to advocate for loved ones. We're talking about shutting down global commerce, and no one was thinking about like what might happen in third world nations as a result. So I'm asking questions, and my following takes off. I go from 0 followers to 13,000 followers in about a month and a half, where I'm doing the show every single day. And I was incorporating a little bit of scripture, and that was just to keep myself in the word as a way of holding myself accountable. But I was having guests on, and then when the George Floyd stuff happened, I was like, you know what? I'm going to plant my flag with law enforcement. And ironically, I had a client come on at that time. It was a brewery, and they're paying me pallets of beer. And I quit drinking at that point. And I started giving away cases of beer to law enforcement as a thank you. And a friend of mine I met at the veterinary hospital was Officer Jesse Madsen. He later died in the line of duty when he stopped the wrong way, drunk driver on 275. But he called me during the whole George Floyd stuff. He's like, dude, they are filling water bottles full of gasoline and throwing them at us. And I'm like, this is outrageous. So I started calling things out, and that was the first time I really got censored on social media. And I went from having an audience in the evenings of 20 to 30,000 followers, or 20 to 30,000 viewers rather, to they kicked me off for 30 days, said I was inciting violence because I made an off the cuff remark joking around about Kyle Rittenhouse. I said, this guy, he just shot 3 felons, he should be given a medal. And it was a total joke. You'd be allowed to say that on terrestrial radio or in television, but Facebook wouldn't let me do that. And I reached out to Congressman, so this is outrageous. And he said, well, Facebook is has the most lobbyists in Washington. There's really nothing we can do about it. And I was like, that's not right. And then it was one thing after another from there. We saw Afghanistan collapse happen there. So I decided I was going to run last cycle. We didn't know where the district lines were going to be. I was born in Clearwater. My office was in Tampa. I lived in Wesley Chapel.
They were changing lines all over the place last cycle. They really were.
Right. And even vetoed the state legislature's map. So it really threw everything out of whack. But I was in the mindset that Democrats are bad, Republicans are good. And little did I know at that point, later I took a biblical citizenship class, and getting involved in all of this, I won the Republican primary, became the Republican nominee, did very well. We were outspent 10-1, and we still won. We were outspent 20-1 in the general. We did the best against Kathy Castor that anybody's ever done. But through that process, I started taking a biblical citizenship class, and I met other people involved. And a friend of mine who I'm working with right now, he's running in Minnesota, and he was taking on a C- Republican. And I saw the Republican that I was going to take on at the time, which was Gus Bilirakis, and he was a D- Republican. I was like, well, I can't let that go. So I went to go after Gus and started running against Gus, actually. That's where majority of, initial part of my campaign went. Little did I know my dad was going to get sick, and, he died at the end of the year. That was kind of a huge hit to the initial part of my campaign. And then as we're getting things geared up in the beginning of the year, Donald Trump sends out a tweet calling for somebody to primary Laurel Lee. And I had run in this district last cycle because it used to be part of 14. I go to church here. We eat here. We dine here. So I decided to jump in, and that's why I'm running here in this district.
Yeah, I like that. I find it interesting that Trump asked somebody to run. He told people to run, and then he turns around and endorses Laurel Lee. I find that interesting myself. Let's see. Go ahead.
Which that kind of jumps. I want to jump in there and also add. Is Jennifer still here? Did she off?
No. Where'd she go?
She's probably gonna log back in, but
yeah,
we did invite Congresswoman Lee to also be part of this discussion as well. And so her staff did reach out. Unfortunately, they did say that she wasn't going to be available because she was on a flight, and she was going to be on a flight during the time that we were scheduling this. So she was going to not be able to join. But we did give her an opportunity, the campaign and her, to be able to say a few words, to the people who were going to be on here. And that specifically, and I would love for Jennifer to also be on here too. So I don't know if she's on the back end.
I just texted her. I said, where'd you go? She might be having difficulty because she was earlier. So we'll just move on. Then real quick, I'll wait for her to come back.
So do you want me to just read what she put her statement?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so this is from Laurel Lee. She said, I am proud to have President Donald Trump's endorsement and looking forward to working with him next term to secure our border and put America first.
Oh, she's back. Okay. Woo, there she is. Okay. She's back. She's actually
I lost.
Go ahead.
I was losing audio, and then I lost the visual too. Did you guys have that issue, or is it just going on here?
No, you just disappeared. That's all. So I'm glad you're back. Since
right.
And actually, guys, we have to be real respectful of time because Jennifer is running late. She only planned to be on for so long. So I'm going to throw her a few questions, and then we can have Jennifer, do you want to stay on a little bit longer, or do you want me to give you the questions first, let you answer them, and then you can go if you need to go?
Oh, let's just continue where we left off. But I was period where I was unable to hear all the audio. Was that just on my? Were you all able to hear all the audio?
I was. I think the people on the live stream were.
So just to kind of for you, Jennifer, since you weren't here for that, so we had asked Congresswoman Lee to also chime in. She wasn't able to be here because she was on a flight during this time. So her statement was brief, and this is what she wanted us to say on the live. I am proud to have President Donald Trump's endorsement and looking forward to. Oh man, well. I don't want to read that again. But anyways, she's basically saying, hey, she's got Donald Trump's endorsement, so, that kind of, leads us into now that that Trump did call her out in the beginning and he's kind of now endorsing her. How do you feel about that, James?
Well, I mean, and while we all know they were sham convictions, he was just convicted of 34 felonies. And he was in D.C. forming some alliances. They're trying to get some stuff passed. They cut some deals. I mean, it doesn't hurt him because he knows that I'm not going to go against him. He knows that from what Barbosa says, she's not going to go against him. So not that I want to put words in her mouth, but I mean, I think that we're both supporting President Trump. And having said that, I think that from a political standpoint, I mean, I don't like the politics of it, but I think it makes sense politically. I mean, was it disappointing? Yeah, but it was also an opportunity to get to hit her again in the newspaper, you know? Got to hit her in the Lakeland Ledger, got to tell the Tampa Bay Times, like, look, here's the deal. She's taken several hundred special interest contributions from all of our political enemies, from Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Pfizer, the folks that really dislike, like Gus Bilirakis, same thing. Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Pfizer, BlackRock, Disney, Target, you know, the list goes on. And like, these are the folks that are against family values, against traditional morals, and they've funded or supported DEI LGBTQ initiatives. So when I see that, it's also happened with, you know, Vern Buchanan down south. Anybody that's watching, look it up. 4,000 plus special interest contributions. And you look at how these folks vote, and they don't vote in line with the Constitution. Laurel Lee has a failing grade. Vern Buchanan, I believe, has a failing grade. If not, he's a D. Gus Bilirakis is a D minus. Like, it's just unacceptable. I would.
You know what's crazy is supposedly Gus Bilirakis votes like 95% of the time with Trump. So I don't know. I've never researched him. I'm gonna have to research him.
I can tell you this. So he has a D minus rating according to the Freedom Index. Also, was it Club for Growth? But I guess more importantly, let's talk about Laurel Lee. She's got a 55% rating when it comes to the Freedom Index, which judges people on how they vote in line with the Constitution. She's voted every single funding bill in line with Kathy Castor, Democrat Kathy Castor. So every single funding bill, she's effectively a Democrat. $1.2 trillion, which was out of control spending. She voted for, while our southern border is wide open, she just voted for another $100 billion to go to foreign countries for free, that we're going to borrow from your kids and their grandkids, and we're going to borrow from them. And what is Brian Paris saying? This is not facts.
He's saying that's not facts. I think it is in reference to what I heard about Gus Bilirakis, was he was voting 90% of the time with Trump.
Yeah. So long story short, she's got like a 50%, 55% rating as a conservative when it comes to polling.
Yeah, that's an rating.
In addition to have warrantless searches with Pfizer, which is outrageous. She was the one that sponsored that. So she is effectively a Democrat and needed to be primaried. Yeah. So again, I think Trump, it's a political motivation. I don't agree with his endorsements. He's made several that I haven't been a fan of. He also endorsed Michelle Fischbach up in Minnesota. They're all RINOs. Like, we have Mike Johnson in charge. How is it that we are not doing anything? Like, the border's still wide open. We're just letting people pour in here.
It's all a big act. I think the problem is we've elected a lot of people that don't know what they're doing in Congress, or what they're supposed to be doing in Congress, or even know all the rules and regs, or even the authority that they have. So let's do that. Let me ask you this. And oh, she's back on. Okay, good. What I'll do is I'll start with Jennifer since she's back. So Jennifer, we were just talking about how people in Congress aren't basically voting with the Constitution, all of that. And then I mentioned a lot of people that are going into office, they don't know what their job description is. They don't know what the rules and regs are. They don't know what they can and cannot do. So in your opinion, what is the job of a Congresswoman?
Well, it's not my opinion. It's the Constitution. Section 1 of the Constitution says that the job of Congress is to legislate. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, obviously, beyond that, they take an oath to follow the Constitution, and they're known for having the power of the purse. So they, determine how our taxpayer dollars are allocated. They have subpoena power when they're in the majority. So there are a lot of powers that they have, but the number one obligation is to legislate.
Okay. All right. Now let's take that over to James Judge. Hey, James, go ahead and tell us what, in your opinion, is the job of a congressman.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's clearly what's laid out in the Constitution. But beyond legislation, there's also dealing with constituent services. So I think I look at this two ways. Constituent services, you really represent everyone. And what I mean by that is, if someone has an issue with the VA or they have an issue with Social Security, that should be, it doesn't matter what, however they're registered to vote, you support that person in dealing with representing them to the federal government, right? However, I actually, and some people may think this is outrageous, but I have no problem saying it. I think that when you get into Congress from a legislative standpoint, you're responsible to the people that put you there. And that means, the Democrats are not going to vote for me, right? So I don't owe them any responsibility or any allegiance whatsoever when I get to Washington. I owe the conservatives who voted for me allegiance and responsibility. And that's why, I think those are really the two responsibilities, right? Constituent services and then legislative.
Okay, and then let's look at this real quick. I have another question for you. How would you balance, like I mentioned before, that I think the new civil rights movement is body autonomy, which I really thought we accomplished that in the 1850s, that you own yourself, you own your own body, and you decide what you're going to do with your own body. And everybody screams, my body, my choice. But then when it came down to the jab, all of a sudden, it wasn't the same argument. So what do you guys, I'm going to give you a loaded question, and don't take more than like a minute and a half to answer. And I know we're kind of like painting you in a corner to answer this, but one, how would you define medical freedom? Okay. And how would you balance public health and individual rights at the federal level? Because I know it's been a lot of, it's actually the health department for each county that was doing a lot of the egregious behavior. And then do you agree that vaccines should be a matter of national security? And if so, or if not, why? So go ahead. We're going to start with Jennifer. Jennifer, you go first.
Okay, well, medical freedom, unfortunately, has been defined different ways by different people. Some people include abortion as medical freedom. Agree with. Medical freedom is the right to decide what you do with your own body medically. How would you balance health and individual rights? Well, I don't think the federal government should be involved in the medical care system. I think as much as we had corruption, we thought that the corruption came to the forefront during COVID.
Uh-oh. Oh, you're breaking up, Jennifer. You're freezing. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we lost her.
Yeah, Jennifer's freezing again.
What a bummer.
I'm actually going to remove it because it's, hold on. I'm going to remove, no, I'm trying to, there we go. It was a weird frame, so I just removed it. Okay, so go ahead, James.
I'm having a really hard time not commenting, but that's okay.
I was like, I can't leave her hanging like that. So I had to take her out. I'm helping the sister out. So James, I'm sorry?
You said, is that the hotel internet?
I think so. And it says devices not connected. Okay, so same question over to you. How would you define medical freedom? How would you balance public health and individual rights at the federal level? And then do you agree that vaccines should be, national security? I mean, if we're putting it in children's bodies, because no longer are vaccine makers held liable in court. So go ahead. Take that one. Take like about a minute and a half.
Well, I mean, it's pretty basic. I don't think that's for the government to tell us. I used to be I was in the military, so we had vaccines for everything, right? Like I've had smallpox, which smallpox actually, well, I know there's some people out there may argue with it, but it did eradicate smallpox. But I mean, they gave us every possible vaccine out there. I didn't really object to it. We didn't have the science that we have now. But I don't think that anybody should be forced to take a vaccine if they don't want to. And whether it's on religious grounds or whether it's on a worry about, we've seen with the COVID vaccine, how many people have been injured and how many people have died as a result of the COVID vaccine. We'll never know the real number. I don't think they're ever going to give it to us, but I would say that you probably have the majority of people that I believe died from COVID, I would say died from the decisions that were made by the people in the hospitals. And what I mean by that is we kicked out loved ones and volunteers that would typically advocate for a patient. People were dying of neglect, and not intentionally by the hospital staff, but you had hospital staff that would typically see 2 patients that were in the ICUs that were seeing 5 patients. And they were putting on twice the amount of PPE to walk in And then when they'd walk out, they would take off the protective equipment, and then they would go get whatever they needed, and they would come in and they would do everything all at once, and they'd put it all back on again. So they didn't have to see that patient for a while, and then they go to the next one. People were literally being neglected, and we had policies like putting people on ventilators. It was just insane. So no, I don't want the government making decisions for me and telling me what's mandatory. I don't think the government should make decisions for anybody and tell them what's mandatory. The difference with the my body, my choice thing is that when you have a baby, that's not your body. And we believe that everyone has a right to life. That's the very first thing that our country put on paper in the Declaration of Independence. So that's my position there.
Okay, I'm waiting for Jennifer to come back. I texted her, let her know I helped her out. Let's move on to, are there any policies that you would advocate for that you can think of for medical freedom at the federal level? Because like I said before, I think it should be part of civil rights movement. You know,
I mean, I'm not one for more legislation. I actually want to push as much back to the states as possible. If it's not outlined in the enumerated powers, then it shouldn't be within Congress's purview. We're supposed to have a limited form of federal government, and what Congress has done is, taken powers that don't really belong to it. That's supposed to be decided at the state level. So in that regard, I'm more or less government, more freedom type of deal. When you look at the preamble in the Constitution, let me pull it up for a second. I want to go to one thing on that a lot of people don't seem to catch. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and first of all, it's lovely how they used to write. No one talks like that anymore. But if we break it down, what does that say? We're going to try to build a more perfect country. We're going to establish justice. So we're going to have laws, right? We're going to ensure peace, provide for the common defense. We're going to defend this country, promote the general welfare. It doesn't say provide the general welfare. So I think that's a differentiator there. And some people may say, well, for general welfare, we've got to do this. And it's like, no, actually you don't. And Congress doesn't have that power under the enumerated powers. And secure the blessings of liberty. So make sure that freedom stays free. For who? Not for immigrants, for ourselves and our posterity. So for our citizens and the children of our citizens and their children and their grandchildren. So I think it's awesome how they wrote it. I just wish that we would kind of take some time to talk about that's what we put on paper to say this is what government's supposed to do.
I wonder how many congressmen actually have memorized that.
Well, I didn't remember. I was reading it off of my phone, but I mean, probably not many.
Let alone read it, but I wonder how many have actually, how many have actually read it? Probably not many. Okay, so I'm going to.
And I love that whoever wrote that, Paul. That is one thing that I think that we do need to do at a federal level. And that may differentiate me from some people, but I really want to see doctors adhere to the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. That's what they're supposed to do, right? And if it's, I don't think that there's people out there that are like heartless. If there's an ectopic pregnancy, right, that has a real issue where her mom is potentially going to die, and they need to do that. Then of course that's like a do no harm scenario, right? You're trying to save a life, but it's just outrageous that we have doctors out there that are literally making a business out of it. Not just doctors, like Planned Parenthood receives funding from the federal government. Like it's
she's
crazy.
Back. No, she's not. Okay. No, I agree with that. Let's see. Should we do election integrity or wait for Jennifer to come back?
Honestly,
well, we picked over some of the unique problems facing the people in District 15.
Yeah. So how about you do that one?
Okay.
Take like 2 minutes to do that one.
So I've got one for you there on what's specifically happening in District 15. So as you know, right, we do have Capitol Police setting up shop in Tampa, Florida. A lot of those that covers most of Hillsborough. That's a lot of other satellite offices that they're looking to set up, right? But they did start over here in Tampa. So for you, as if we were to elect you, how would you stop that government overreach? Because right now, as it stands, Capitol Police does not have any kind of oversight. They are able to spy which seems to be what they're doing right now. There is no way for us to check because the state law does not apply to them. They have their own jurisdiction, which isn't Florida, it's the capital, right? So what are they doing here? And I know that this is something that Congresswoman Lee had brought up in committee, and it just didn't seem like she got a very good answer from those who are overseeing that and handling the Capitol Police and the different satellite offices. So my question to you is what you would do differently to remove Capitol Police. Would you remove them? How would you remove them?
Well, it's kind of multi-part answer, right? In terms of what about Capitol Police being here, it's wrong. And the legislative branch doesn't have authority to have a law enforcement agency in Florida. That's just not within its purview. So, of course, I'm against it. From a practical standpoint of how do you remove them, you cut their funding. Like that's the number one answer that I'm going to say for everything, because it accomplishes two things, right? Like you get rid of the funding, they're gone, and you help with the other major issue, which facing everybody in our country, which is the economy, right? The out of control inflation that we have, the $36 trillion in debt, the $220 trillion in unfunded liabilities. You look at the massive spending problem we have. I would just say you cut the spending you just cut their budget, get rid of them altogether. I don't see our need for it. We have, and I love and support law enforcement, but I don't see a need for having. It's not even constitutional. So it's like beyond the debate. But that's the problem, is that most of these people in Congress, and forgive me when I say this, but I really feel like we're living in a post-constitutional America. I love the Constitution. I would die for the Constitution, but over half the country, including the vast majority of Congress, I would argue every Democrat and about 190 Republicans, don't care about the Constitution. They don't do it with the way that they vote. They don't do it with the way that they conduct themselves. So I think we have a major problem in terms of education in this country, and we need to start teaching civics again and teaching what Congress is allowed to do. A couple other things real quick, and I don't know if that answered your full question or not.
Yeah, it did. A lot of people don't have trust in the justice system, especially what they see what's happening with President Trump. So if we see that there's a satellite office and that it was established shortly after January 6th, and it's still there, it makes people worried, especially the people in this area. Me being a constituent, I don't understand why they're here. And I know a lot of people don't even know about that. And no one can send any public records request to find out what exactly they're doing here or who they're spying on or any of those things. So it is very alarming, especially for a regular normie like me. I don't have the funds to defend myself. President Trump is fighting the battle of his life with this political legal battles that they're throwing at him. So that's kind of why I think it's a big issue. And a lot of people aren't really talking about it anymore.
Well, another issue that is not really being talked about that is impacting people in the 15th Congressional District, and not just there, around the country, is border security. And I know Laurel Lee is trying to talk about it, here and there now, but over the last few years, we've had a mass migration impacting Florida. Over 500,000 people left Cuba. 5% of their population has left Cuba. The largest exodus in Cuban history. It's larger than the Mariel boat lift by a long shot. And they're coming here mainly to Florida. We have had mass exodus from Haiti as well, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Nicaragua. And the Biden administration has encouraged that. And the real problem that I saw when I went to the border in January was that I don't think Republicans or Democrats truly want to shut it down. It's a divisive issue that they can fundraise with. Yeah. And they take it and they use it to fundraise with, but then the special interest groups that are contributing to them, the private security contractors that have the contracts to go do migrant processing, which I saw when I was down there, these giant tent cities that look like the tent cities that we saw when we were over in Kuwait and Afghanistan that were run by like KBR and Halliburton. They're down there at the southern border now. We just imported that over here. And those are special interest groups that are then funding those members of Congress. And then you look at like the NGOs. Laurel Lee just voted to give 3.6 trillion, or sorry, 3.6 billion. I sound like Biden there for a second. 3.6 billion It's still more than should have, but to go to NGOs that are working on the southern border instead of doing anything to actually stop what's happening down there. Like these problems are impacting us. They're not only is it countries are supposed to have a border, a culture, a language, a history, and they are trying. The left is trying to take all of that away from us, and they're trying to take it away from us because and they've done a very good job of it so far, sadly. But I really believe that it's intentional. If anybody has never read this book, I highly recommend it. The Naked Communist was written in 1958, and they outlaid the 45 goals of the Communist Party. And there was a congressman by the name of Sid Erlong, who is from Florida. This was January 10th, 1963. I don't believe anything like trust but verify, right? And this is the congressional record, Appendix A, and it's on page 34 and 35. And it was Appendix A, January 10th, 1963. Congressman Erlong read this into the record. And I want to read a few of these real quick.
Well, hold on real quick. We have to get back to the county. Somebody asked me about the county. So how does foreign policy affect the county?
In terms of, you mean border immigration policies, or are you talking about like foreign aid? I would stop funding everything. I would stop all foreign aid until we get our house in order. We don't have extra money to give away for free. So
right.
Like my solution for the border that I was going to get to after I talked about what they're trying to do. Okay. My solution for the border is stop paying the folks who aren't doing their job. If the executive branch is not going to do its job, if the U.S. attorneys aren't going to do their job, the assistant U.S. attorneys aren't going to do that, stop paying all of them. That would be my solution there. In terms of foreign aid, I would stop foreign aid. And that sounds, oh, you can't do that. Well, I think you can. It's not like we have an extra pile of cash that we can reach over here and just give away. Like every time we're going to give money away to a foreign country, we have to borrow that money from our future money, which is your grandchildren's money, to go ahead and give it away for free to another country. We didn't do that during World War II. We actually loaned money during World War II, and England just got done paying that back in like 2006. So this is, I'm not sure what you mean there, Brian, but that's an issue. And again, when I was going to talk about these goals of the communist goals, one of them is foreign aid. There's a lot of foreign policy issues that are sprinkled in there, and it was intentional. It was by the Communist Party. They wanted to get us to, admit China to the UN. They wanted to have us spread thin by giving foreign aid out to all these foreign countries. Like it's all intentional.
It looks like we got Jennifer back.
Yeah, we got her back. So while she was gone, can you catch her up real quick, Vanessa, and then present the same questions to her that we had for James?
Okay, so my question to James was, and now I'll pose the same question to you with regards to Capitol Police. So that's affecting residents, voters in District 15. It covers all of Tampa. That Capitol Police has set up shop over here in Tampa, and so they're surveilling people. It seems, right? Because we're not actually able to find out what it is that they're doing here. And I did see a question by one of the people on here asking, a congressperson, does have the ability to ask what they're doing here. Congresswoman Lee did have an opportunity. So what would you do differently? Because nothing is being done. They're still here, still surveilling, and there is no oversight with any of that. We're not allowed as residents to find out what they're doing here. So to you, Ms. Barbosa, what would you do differently to remove Capitol Police?
Hi, Vanessa. Well, you're right. A congressperson does have the right to ask and find out, and they can hold hearings in the Oversight Committee. And also, Congress is the one giving funding to that, and Congress does not have to fund that. So we can defund them when we vote on the budget. Laurel Lee, if you watch the hearings with her with the Capitol Police, she played very innocent and naive. She knows what's going on, and she's pretending that she doesn't know that they're acting not in our best interest, but she does, and she's not taking the steps that Congress can take to basically get rid of them, which is what we need to do.
I agree. I did hear her really good with that. So yeah, and go ahead, Audra. I know that you had asked another question, but I totally forgot what that one was. A foreign policy, right?
Yeah. And how does foreign policy affect us here at the county level?
Well,
your
gosh,
opinion.
I live just blocks away from something called a migrant education center. I don't know. I think it's wonderful for everybody to get an education, no matter what country they're from, but we need to educate our
Right.
people first. I mean, if you're following the school board elections, I think everyone's probably following those here pretty closely. We have a lot of problems in our own education system. So that's one way that foreign policy, letting people here who really don't belong here, letting them into our country, that's one way it affects us on the county level. Not just the education system, obviously the economy as well. Security, law and order, we have to give people background checks when they come in. And yeah, the border issue is the number one issue with respect to foreign affairs that we need to get in order.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Now, when it comes for foreign policy, now you can't talk about foreign policy without bringing up right now Israel, Ukraine, and countries like that. Who wants to take the question first about Israel? So regarding Israel, is there anything you could do as a congressperson to get the hostages out of Israel? I mean, literally, people are saying it didn't happen. I'm pretty certain my friends in Israel are like, no, it happened. Who wants to
I'm happy first, if that's okay. So one, let's start with the fact that this would never have happened had Donald Trump been president. If the election wouldn't have been stolen and he would be president right now, Putin would not have invaded Ukraine and Israel would not have been attacked, because people around the world feared consequences. And the problem that we have right now with this global instability is that there's no fear of consequences for any actions against us or our allies. I think that when it comes to funding for Ukraine or for Israel, we don't, like I said earlier, we don't have excess money. We don't have free money to give away. Now, we have a bilateral defense agreement, mutual bilateral defense agreement with Israel, and we need to honor that. So having the military over there and a show of force and presence, but then the enemy actually has to fear real consequences of retaliation. Same thing with the border. Like, when we had people storm our border and tear down an international border boundary and assault our men and women in uniform, they didn't shoot them. Like, they should have been shot. And people go, that's crazy. I can't believe you would say that. And I go, no, I served in Iraq. Like, I guarded 2 oil terminals over there, and there was a warning zone and there was an exclusion zone. And if you crossed the warning zone and got into the exclusion zone, the penalty for that, or the consequence of that, was destructive fire. And I don't want to see anyone shot, for the record. The problem is that there is no fear of consequences. And if there was a fear of a consequence of something like that happening, people wouldn't be just storming the border. So it's very similar, that we need strong leadership in Washington and a Congress that's willing to support President Trump. And that's why I'd like to go to Washington.
All right. Jennifer, let's talk to you for a second. What are your thoughts on what Congress can do to get the hostages out of Israel, or out of Gaza back into?
And you asked about Ukraine also, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, starting with Ukraine, I am a firm believer that we have sent more than enough money over there. It's not going to help the citizens of Ukraine. In fact, funding more war when we need to promote peace, which is what Donald Trump was doing when he was in office. Laurel Lee has recognized that her constituents do not want to send any more money to Ukraine, even though she has voted to send money to Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. So she came out and she said, around the time that Donald Trump endorsed her a few weeks ago, she said no more money to Ukraine. And she finally voted no on a Ukraine funding bill. Then the day after he endorsed her, she started pushing the reauthorization of the NDAA, which gave another $300 million to the war in Ukraine. I will not vote for any of that when I'm in Congress. Elena, you're from Ukraine, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And do you think that we should be sending more money there for the war?
Well, I believe we need to stop the war. I believe that continue sending money, it means continue war. I know people who live in Ukraine. I speak to people who live in Ukraine. It is very sad because the money really does not help, from what I hear, the citizens of Ukraine. It just continue funding the war.
I agree. I agree. That's pretty much what I was saying, is that the money is not helping the people here. Excuse me, the people there. Obviously, it's not helping the people
We're here.
either.
They're not helping us here.
Right. Not helping us. In terms of Israel, foreign policy really is, according to the Constitution, it really is primarily up to the president and not Congress. However, Congress does have the power, and they have been exercising power, whether you believe that they have that constitutional right or not. They have been exercising the power to decide how much funding these various countries in the Middle East get. And it would certainly behoove the Israelis, if we had an administration and a majority in Congress who were not still sending money to Hamas and Iran and other people who are harming Israel. So in terms of that, Congress can certainly make decisions with respect to funding to those countries. And in terms of getting the hostages back, that's why we need a strong president in office. None of this would have happened if President Trump were in office, and I would follow his lead in terms of proper negotiations to get our American hostages back from from Hamas.
Yeah, that was a terrible day to watch it, even across the ocean. And I had a friend that was in Israel, and I was trying to get a hold of her, and I couldn't get a hold of her. I finally found her. She's in Gulfport.
Okay.
I was like, what are you doing in Gulfport? And she's like, I left Israel. And just the heartache of having to leave a homeland, under that kind of duress, it's just awful for that, for me. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about election integrity. And this one, I'm trying to gauge where you're at on elections. Okay. So, and we'll go with Barbosa first. Do you see any ways to improve our election laws at the federal level?
Okay, well, the 24th Amendment shows an intent to protect the right to vote, but I believe that extends to any election. So the way in which, again, going back to the Constitution, the way in which elections are to be run is supposed to be determined by the state legislators, not the federal government. So I don't think the federal government should be involved in elections. You were asking, however, about if elections should be federalized. No, I don't think that they should be federalized. The Constitution intended for that to be overseen by local communities, and that's how we maintain integrity with that. I believe in paper ballots and hand counting, and if it's federalized, we know what happens when things are federalized. Just look at the Department of Education.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so same question to you, James.
Oh, I wanted to add one other thing. Oh,
okay.
If I may. I do believe that Congress should pass legislation mandating criminal investigations and prosecutions of anyone who violates laws passed by the state legislature. And we had that issue in 2020, where we had laws passed by state legislatures in different states. For example, in Pennsylvania, they certainly were not followed, but the people who broke those laws were not brought to justice. And that's part of how 2020 was stolen.
Yep. Yeah. That's crazy.
So I think this is one. I agree. This isn't. It's not a federal issue in the sense that I don't want to federalize elections. The federal government is a disaster, and everything that it touches. Milton Friedman once said, "If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in a few years there'd be a shortage of sand." It's not constitutional. We can't have them. We can't have that happen. But criminalizing. I guess I might be open to something like that. I think we have too much federal legislation as it is. I would say that it's not a congressional problem. We have a cultural problem. We have a country that doesn't understand or doesn't agree. We can't even agree that only citizens should be allowed to vote. That's outrageous. Like, that's exactly what the government's responsibility is to do, is to protect the citizens and the rights of those citizens. We just talked about it a little bit earlier. We talked about the preamble of the Constitution. Like, it's ourselves, right? Our citizens, and then our posterity. So the children and grandchildren of those who live here, the citizens. So we need to be, this is a long-term, and I think when I say it's a cultural problem, like I think we need to get back to, I know we need to get back to biblical values. Our founders believed in the Bible. They had biblical values, and I'm not trying to force that on anybody, but I would like to see, I would strip the funding for the Department of Education. I'd push that back to responsibilities for churches. Hopefully they would start up schools. You're seeing that happen a lot in Florida with this voucher program. But we have an education problem, and we have a morality problem where people think that it's okay to cheat. They think it's okay to accept a campaign contribution from a special interest group, and they don't call it a bribe, they call it lobbying. When you give somebody a gift or money for something in exchange for influence is the very definition of a bribe. The issues that we're facing is that we have people that are, it's a cultural problem. It's the fact that people think that that's acceptable to begin with. So you can try to legislate that, but until you change the hearts of people, I don't see that. People are always going to try to cheat. They're always going to try to.
Oh no, she's gone. Let's see. I'm going to add her to the stage. She might. They're having issues. I think it's her internet access. Oh, she's back. Okay, good. Okay. She does seem to do better with the video off. I think it might be too much on the internet doing voice and sounds. I mean, voice and visual. And then, so when it comes to elections, I know a lot of people talk about you need. Oh no.
I guess one thing I would clarify on the federal part, I think that we should require at least somewhere just state issued ID and citizenship. Those are two requirements that are easy. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not all knowing. I don't know if we'd have to pass an amendment for that or how that would work, but I think that we should totally look at that. I think everybody.
I would like to say something. When I became a citizen in the United States, I had to study for a test, which is 100 questions. I had to study history of the United States of America, and then I had to go and take a real test. They were asking me questions. I had to prepare for the test, and then I passed the test, and I got my citizenship, and then I had to go to an event where I was given my
the ceremony.
I believe the ceremony when I. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, now, before I got my citizenship, I wasn't allowed to go vote. One of why I got my citizenship is because I wanted to vote. Because you can just live in the United States as a legal resident with a green card. But I really wanted to become a citizen, so I have the right to vote. So now that I'm seeing that people can just go vote without studying for the exam, just because they live here, it's very disturbing, because I think that even kids who grow up here, they should take the test. And something that Vivek was talking about it, once they become 18, they should take the test so they should appreciate their citizenship.
Right. And why that's important, and I do really want to focus on this for a second, why that's critically important that they study history. I would call it assimilation, right? You have them assimilate, they learn our history, is because what was unique about the United States of America, as opposed to many other Western civilizations in Western countries, while a lot of them believed in biblical values, this is the first country in planet Earth's history that we said, no, we don't get our rights from the king, we get our rights from God. And we put that down on paper. And we said, our rights come from God, not from government. And government's job is to protect those rights and not let anybody infringe upon them. You look at the Bill of Rights, that Congress shall make no law, shall not be infringed. Like it's putting Congress in the box.
It's pretty, so, it's not, maybe.
Right. And you have this effort to change the population, change the voter demographics. It's intentional, because if they can get enough people in here that don't understand that our rights come from God, then they can change the way that our country is. They can change the laws. And that's the problem that we're faced with. So again, it's education related, but assimilation is important. I would stop, going back to immigration for a second, I would stop all immigration until we get this situation under control. And that's not because I don't love people. I do love people. But I think that we have a problem. I was in Ukraine, by the way. What's that?
It's inhumane right now. I have a cousin who is border patrol / gang police. He looks like a complete cholo, but he's not. He's actually undercover. And it's inhumane what's going on at the border.
I asked a Border Patrol agent how long he'd been a law enforcement officer. We're standing in Roma, Texas, right on the border. We're looking across the Rio Grande. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was standing there with the Border Patrol agent. I said, "How long have you been a law enforcement officer?" And he looked at me and he laughed. He goes, "I used to be a law enforcement officer. I'm not one anymore." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, when I was a street cop, I would actually enforce the law." He goes, "Now I'm just nothing more than a glorified Uber driver." And I was like my heart sank, because I mean, I'm former Coast Guard. Like, we used to, they still do enforce alien migrant interdiction operations. AMIO is what it's called, down on the Florida Straits and elsewhere. And it's just amazing that, like, that's how demoralized they are, that they're not allowed to do their job right now because this administration has told them that they can't.
Yeah. Okay. So Jennifer's gone. I texted her, see if she'll come back. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, go ahead and give us a few lawmakers or office holders that you admire and that you'd be excited to work with or even to emulate. Present, prior.
Yeah. I used to say Jim Jordan and members of the House Freedom Caucus and that sort of thing. And I can't say that anymore. Like, I'm really disappointed. The only one that I know personally that I really trust anymore, and there's some former lawmakers. I mean, Ted Yoho is awesome. Steve King, both have endorsed me. But they really believe in a limited federal government and defending and preserving the Constitution. Eli Crane is fantastic. I've known Eli since we worked together back. We helped put him on television related to Bottle Breacher, which back in the day was on Shark Tank. And we did a lot of the earned media placements for him all around the country supporting that. So way before he was even thinking about running for Congress, he was actually part of my inspiration for running last cycle, which is really interesting because I called him from Texas last year and I was like, dude, I know how we're going to save our country. It's this biblical citizenship thing. And as I'm talking about it, he starts laughing. I go, "Why are you laughing?" He goes, "I didn't tell you I took a biblical citizenship class." And I'm like, "No way." So I was with him in DC, in the Capitol about a week, not even a week, a few days after the McCarthy vote. He was the lone congressman that didn't vote for McCarthy. And I think I still have this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Just so people can see I'm not, blowing smoke here. I texted Gus and his chief on January 3rd, 2023. And I don't know if you can read that or not. Let's see if it'll.
Hold on, let me put on.
It says, "Please don't vote for McCarthy."
Yeah.
Anyhow, I don't know, but I was very disappointed that so many people voted for McCarthy. I'm disappointed to see that McCarthy's going after good congressmen like Eli Crane. And I like Thomas Massie. He's I didn't agree because I think he was upset with Trump for calling out Laurel Lee. And whether or not people agree with Trump calling out Laurel Lee, whether it was related to the DeSantis endorsement or not, like, it put a spotlight on her. And we looked at her and we go, holy cow, we've got an F-rated Republican here. And not only that, she's only been in a year and a half and she's taken several hundred special interest contributions. Like, she's no good. So, but other than that, Thomas Massie, which I think he just lost his wife. I think we all need to remember him in our prayers. He's somebody I look up to in terms of just, limited government. Seems like a really good guy, and I support what he stood for. Is she back yet or no?
No, she lost all audio and everything. Okay. So another quick question. I'm waiting for her to text me back. We're texting now. I did get a text privately that said, what would you do, if anything, for the political prisoners right now, who I don't want to mention the date or even what they're called, because I already had my audio clipped once already by the internet. And
are we talking about that thing in January?
Yeah, it's the beginning of the year, the big event.
So
what would you do?
I made a comment at the Hillsborough Republican Lincoln Day dinner.
Real quick, she's back in. I'm just going to pay her I'm going to give her the benefit of just putting her on real fast, okay? Because she keeps going in and out. Okay, so since she's in, hey, Jennifer, real quick, I'm going to let you talk just in case, God forbid, you get disconnected again. What is anything you would do as a congressperson for the people of the big event in the beginning of the year? The political prisoners. What would you do for them in Congress?
Well,
Yeah, I just don't want to say the word.
Yes, and I think we should get reparations for them. I would put forth that bill on day one. I think they deserve reparations.
What would that look like?
That would be financial. And I know that would not fix what they've been through, but they've certainly earned it. They've been through psychological torture, financial ruin through their legal bills. And that's standard procedure when people have been persecuted, been a victim of a crime. You can get civil penalties, and that's financial. And I think that Congress can and should do that.
I like that. A lot of them, I don't know if people know, they're I've seen some that they didn't even have money for medication when they were sick. I mean, I know people have had, family members in prison now for years.
And obviously to hold the people accountable who did this to them, who persecuted the J6 prisoners. But I'm a little tired of candidates in Congress saying we're going to hold them accountable. Even if they mean well, that's a very long process. And some sort of financial compensation is a more immediate, at least, assistance that we can give them in the short term.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, James.
In relation to that, I think that's a case-by-case basis, not just blanket reparations for anybody. First of all, we have a massive spending problem already, and that's typically what Congress does, is throw money at problems, and it doesn't seem to work. I think that anybody who is wrongly imprisoned, yes, of course, that's kind of standard legal procedure, is that if you've been wrongfully imprisoned, there's typically a civil settlement of some sort, and I think that would be handled on a case-by-case basis. I made a comment the other day at the Lincoln Day dinner, which went viral and wound up on Comedy Central, and people were upset about it, and they're upset because I said that I would do what President Lincoln did and Congress did in 1862 when they suspended the writ of habeas corpus. And I said I would do that so that President Trump, on his first day in office, could go after and imprison the treasonous and subversive officials in our government. I did say in our government. Who have allowed stuff like that to happen intentionally, like it was intentional. And I think that they should be dealt with. I think that there should be, we have an invasion going on. We have a rebellion going on. It's been underway for 60 plus years. We have their plan. It was put into the congressional record in 1963, and they've been executing on that. And it's a shame because some people go, well, what if the Democrats do it to us? They go, what are you talking about? Like, the Democrats have already done it to us. They've arrested Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, Jenna Ellis, Mark Meadows, like the list goes on. And then 1,400 of these folks from the situation that we were talking about at the beginning of the year that we're not allowed to discuss. It's absurd. So I think that we need to go after anybody who is involved in allowing that to happen at the Capitol, like Nancy Pelosi. So that's, I guess, my response to that one.
Yeah. A lot needs to be done over those political prisoners. One thing it did for me watching the whole, from the great event of January, I didn't realize how bad our legal system was and how much privilege helps you. And I'm not saying white privilege. I'm talking about like money privilege or social privilege helps you. I know that when Jeremy, who was in Pinellas County prisons, his eyes were open as well. And I think it's kind of interesting that now you have kind of these worlds colliding of how our legal system has been used thanks to, things put into place by people like Biden. They're able to attack certain demographics. I was shocked to see that.
Well, I interviewed on my podcast, we interviewed Adam Johnson, who was the guy that had the podium. which I learned is a lectern. Actually, it's not a podium; it was a lectern. But he picked it up for a selfie and made world. He was all over the place, and then he put it back down, and they sent him to prison for that. Like it's so outrageous. We had like grandmothers and grandfathers and peaceful Americans that were walking through that building on that day. That were invited in by law enforcement officers. We're waving people in. We have it on video. Like, it's so absurd that we're even having this conversation. But again, that was intentional. Like, it was by design. And the people that did that, they're the ones that need to go to prison.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but it's information warfare.
They can find the grandma who went to January 6th, right? But they can't find the human traffickers who are doing their business here in Tampa.
Oh, and speaking of, you don't want to use those two words, human, and then, the other word together, because we'll get throttled so bad on social media.
We're conditioning ourselves because of the censorship that's been imposed on us.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
This is one thing I'd like to do if I get to Congress. I want to see Congress. I don't want a lot of federal laws, but I do think that we need to go after social media. Because you look at what happened, like, why did Congress just go after TikTok? Well, I mean, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, whose competitor is TikTok, they fund pretty much 90% of Congress, right? All the Democrats and 190 Republicans. But you look at like how we regulate, and everybody should be concerned about this, right? If you're a Democrat or Republican, you should be concerned that your opponent has the same advertising reach and advertising costs that you do. So if you buy an ad from Fox 13 in Tampa, well, that 30-second ad is going to cost the same for the Democrat, for the Republican. You know the audience that's watching at that period of time, right? But if you buy an ad from Facebook, you have no idea what the actual reach is. You have to take their word for it.
Yeah, so I actually ran across something, and I'd like to hear this from both you guys, and then we'll do one more question and we'll be done. I ran across something running my Patriot group, and that was my social media, not my social media, but my text message alert system all of a sudden got throttled. Nobody was getting it. They shut my access down. And when I called in, they told me it's because of my social media account, which is not hooked to my text message alert system. There are two different platforms. Because it had the word Patriot in it, they considered it to be oh gosh, what's the word they used? But they considered it to where they didn't want to do business with me anymore. And they gave me my money back and they closed my account. And then I said, well, is this a law? Like, give me the law that you can do this to me. And one of them slipped up and told me that all the internet access, telephone communication, basically all the communication companies have now come together with this. It's not a law. They've come together with this new agreement, and it's called like practices that they are going to do their best to make sure there's no misinformation. So my text message alert system on Click Send Go, when they saw my social media page, decided this is bad, and closed my account. And so how there has to be some way of I don't know if that's considered. I don't know what to do. So go ahead, Jennifer, if you heard any of that, tell me what you think about that. How Congress can help.
Well, what you're talking about is illegal surveillance of your private messages.
There we go. There you go. There you go. Okay. Whoop, you're breaking up. Right there. Uh-oh. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to give her a moment. Go ahead, James.
I want to clarify that real quick, because I don't know that I would say that it's illegal surveillance, especially if it's being posted in public. However, they shouldn't be able to use that against you. And especially if there's different ways to regulate this, right? Like, social media operates on the internet, which was basically funded by DARPA, military research that paid for the internet to basically be created, unless you believe Al Gore, of course. So we have the ability to regulate that the same way that the FCC regulates the airwaves, right, with television stations. So I think that there's something that you could do there. But I've seen it. I have a client, Spikes Tactical. They make they're a gun manufacturer. They had their banking shut down because they make guns, even though they make guns and sell them to certain agencies within the Department of Defense, and they're just a gun manufacturers. They lost their bank account because they make guns, and they made some political statements, and that's a right protected by our Bill of Rights. And the same thing with speech. Like, I think that Facebook is the new public forum, and Congress has a duty to make sure that speech is protected, that laws are not made. Anybody, by the way, who was caught up in that whole deal where the government was telling Twitter and Facebook who to censor, those people they belong in prison as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we were told that because our group had the word patriot and it was considered hate speech. That is what they told us, and they will not do business with us.
The word patriot is now offensive.
Yeah, it just means fatherland. It's called patriating or patriot, or it's just a Latin root word that means father. I mean, it's not like it means crazy person, like lunatic, like that would be crazy because that actually means because of the moon.
Right. Well, it's amazing what they're saying is hate speech now. So
yeah. Okay. I think she's back.
Hold on. For saying anything.
Yeah. Now go ahead. If you're back, Jennifer, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know how much of my answer you actually heard.
I didn't hear any of it. That's why I was like, hold on, let me go to James real quick. So go ahead and answer the question about that, about the censorship.
Well, it sounded like you were talking about unlawful surveillance of your private communications.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. So obviously the key word there is unlawful. And so Congress needs to, our current representative, Laurel Lee, she does not mind unlawful surveillance of our private communications. She has voted repeatedly to reauthorize FISA. I'm 100% opposed to that. I would not vote for that. And in terms of the companies that are unlawfully looking into your private communications, obviously they need to be held accountable. If they're getting any sort of government funding, then that should be stopped until they hold hearings and get to the bottom of that and put an end to it.
That's great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close with this question. And since I have you up and since your internet's working right now, do you have any parting comments for Laurel Lee, the voters, or anything like that?
Yes, I did not realize we were.
Uh-oh. Go ahead.
Are you still there, Jennifer? I think we lost her.
Yeah, I'll give her a moment. We'll come right back to her. Okay, so we'll start with, go ahead, James Judge. Any parting comments for Laurel Lee, the voters, or anything like that?
Yeah, Laurel is a nice person. I've had the opportunity to meet her. She's a nice person. I think against her personally. I have a problem with her constitutionally. The fact that she doesn't vote to support the Constitution. I have a problem with, like I said, about 190 Republicans that aren't upholding their oath. And I think Americans are infuriated by it. The vast majority of us are. We're outraged at the fact that they fund special interest groups, whether it's defense sector, whether it's Pfizer. We talked about vaccines, the billions and billions of dollars that are given away for vaccines. Or the defense industry, which is taking billions and billions of dollars from this whole Ukraine thing. And or the southern border, or whatever, it's all a giant business. Congress is nothing more than an apparatus to extract money from the American Treasury. And these corrupt politicians return that money to the special interest groups that contributed to them. What's sad is they don't actually represent the people that sent them there. And what I think is probably most concerning is that Republicans, everybody who's paying attention right now, but a lot of Republicans for years, and I was one at one point, where you go do your duty on election day and you go to the poll and you didn't pay attention to the primary and you didn't actually get involved. But it's too late by that point. These people that are in there, they're bought and paid for. This is nothing more than a business for them, and we are interfering with their business because there's consultants that make a lot of money from this whole thing. And those consultants are going to get paid franked money for mail, for digital, for all that stuff. And us, the taxpayers, are paying for it. So I want to see some major reform. I want to see some, not only do I want to see term limits, I want to see campaign finance reform. I think that this, by the way, where does all that money go? It goes to liberal organizations like Facebook, YouTube, which is owned by Google, right? ABC, NBC, CBS, like cable news outlets. And that money is spent on advertising, and we're funding, again, our political enemies. And why are Republicans doing that? It's just, we need to get serious if we're going to be, here's what I would say. You'll see Democrats that actually say what they want to do, and about 190 of the Republicans in Congress lie through their teeth, tell you that they're aligned with the party values and what the party platform says, and then they go vote the opposite way. And I think that's what I'm most upset about, is that Laurel Lee has already demonstrated that she's compromised. She's accepted their money. She's voted a way that's unconstitutional, and she's abdicated her responsibility. So I am running for United States Congress in Florida's 15th Congressional District. I hope that you will support me. I pledge to serve no longer than 8 years. I will self-impose term limits if we don't get them. And that's me. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And go from there.
Sounds good. You had a question, Elena? We can't hear you.
Oh, you're muted again.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So what you just mentioned, James, about how, money changes people in Congress. So when I go and I vote based on what I hear. And this is why this event was so important to me, because I'm a mom. I have children. It's very hard for me to get out and attend events when candidates go and speak. And that's why it was very important to have, because we vote based on what we hear. And then people get into Congress and everything changes there, right? We elect you, James Judge, before you become a congressman. How do we keep in touch with you so we know that you will continue serving the people who elected you, as you mentioned before? How do we know that you will not become next Laurel Lee, who now votes because what you just mentioned, right? So how do we gain this trust back in our candidates?
Sure. So I don't know if there was an error there for a second. I've said on the record that I'm not going to take special interest contributions, and I want you to hold me accountable to that. So I'm already giving you ammo for the future, so that if I do back out, you can hit me on that. You need to hold me accountable, just like we need to hold all of these folks accountable. And the thing that I think differentiates me from most people is that I don't care anymore. I'm not going there to make friends. I've already pissed off enough people here in the local Tampa area. The only Republican who's actually voting in line with the Constitution is Anna Polina Luna. All the rest of them should be fired. And most people aren't going to say that because they don't want to focus on their races or whatever. But it's just truth is truth. These people are not doing what they said that they were going to do. Hold me accountable. Take my cell phone number down, 727-463-1295. I've given it out at multiple meetings over and over and over. There's a couple other numbers. They all go to that one. That is my cell. Text me, call me, please. Not before 4 a.m. But hold me accountable. This is not. I'm not going there to. By the way, I'm not promising to do a lot legislatively either. I want to limit federal government. I want to use this platform for what it is. You have a bully pulpit when you're a member of Congress. I'll be one of 435. Yes, it's a drip in the bucket, right? So hopefully we get enough of people like me to actually make a change. But until you get that majority, you're not going to get that. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use the platform to talk about the real problems facing our country. The fact that we have a cultural crisis in America where we can't say that you're male or female. Of course you can say that you're male or female. That's what the founders nailed that in the very first sentence of the Declaration, the laws of nature and nature's God. These are very basic biblical truths, and we have a government that is lying to its populace. So I know I just totally, I think I answered your question and then I added some more, but if I didn't, please let me know, because I want to make sure I answer your question.
No, you absolutely did, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, because I feel like a lot of young families with young children, we don't have the opportunity to get to know the candidates. And when the primaries come, like you mentioned, people don't even know to go and vote during primaries. And so it's very important that we hear from candidates, and we educate people on how important primaries are.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to hit on when you're talking about being a parent that a lot of people aren't aware of is that, and this is one of the reasons I want to abolish the U.S. Department of Education, but and a bunch of other departments, by the way. I think we have way too much federal government. I'd love to see, I mean, not just Department of Education, agriculture, just go on down the list. Like, we need to cut spending, so let's cut spending, right? But when you...
Real quick, James, we got Jennifer on there, and we don't want to lose her either.
Title IX is how the federal government is using, they're trying to force this transgender nonsense down our schools' throats. And it's unacceptable. It's one of the reasons I wanted to fund them. And on top of it, we need to work to get rid of that. And I think the Supreme Court decision on Friday may help with that, because they're not going to let federal executive branches actually, determine or interpret legislation. So I'm hoping that will change that, but we'll see. And it's probably going to take many lawsuits until you get there. I think she's gone again. So
she said, I'm trying. She's trying to come back. So, well, I think that was very good. I'm going to just talk for a second to see if she's back, and then we'll let her end it with her statement, because we've had so many technical difficulties. She said, I connect, and then it just disconnects. I think it's her internet. But I'll talk about this real quick. I actually was going to do a live stream later on regarding how people can learn how to do research on their own candidates, how to pull public records, how to really check up on what people say. And I think that would be a fun one. I'll make a lot of enemies, and I can show people how to follow the money, how to follow the dollar. Weird. Who's that? So anyway, I think that would be a good live stream to do just before before people get their, mail-in ballots. Hey, let's give you the information on how to research candidates on yourself, because we cannot go on people's endorsements. You just can't in this day and age. I don't think it's kosher to do that, to just use endorsements from other people. And I was guilty, like you said, of like voting down the ballot for decades. I pulled my own voting record. Did you know you could do that? You could pull your own voting record, see how you voted. And I've been like hard right since 1992. So that was interesting to see. I was like, hey, I am a super voter. But let's see.
You can also do your own voting audit to see like the things that you've signed petitions for and everything. And
yeah.
It's very interesting to see as soon as, from as far as you've been registered, everything is listed there as to what you've done, and you can even fill it up on candidates as well. Very
interesting. Let's wait. Oh, somebody said they're blocked from commenting, but I don't think so, unless they're blocked from my profile.
I couldn't comment as a page. I don't know if they're using a page or not. It wouldn't let me comment as a page.
Yeah. Oh, that could be it too. Okay. Let's see if we can get, I was going to say Laurel Lee, if we can get Jennifer Barbosa back up. I'm just trying to give her another minute to come back up and then give us her parting thoughts. But
it's unfortunate that her connection hasn't been very great throughout this interview.
I'd be happy to do it again and do it in person if need be.
We can at Town Hall America. We can. And then just so you guys know, Town Hall is changing. So we were just strictly in person for a long time. For 3 years, we had some of the most amazing people on our stage. And then I just felt like God said, start producing. So we're going into that direction. So I'm going into a nonpartisan position where, you know how the left and right are always, we're in our own echo chambers, yelling at our own people. And I realized that what's going on is people aren't talking. So when you go door knocking and you are getting people to vote for candidates, you'll realize that people are really swallowing what the news has said. So you have people that are hard right or hard left swallowing the same story. I'm like, whoa, how does that happen? They're still watching the news. And when they don't get a chance to talk it out, it's almost like talk therapy. When you don't get a chance to talk it out, you don't understand that you've been lied to. So it's interesting when people start talking, how they change a little bit in their viewpoints. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, let's just one more thing into business. I mean, we used to work in television. Like, what people need to realize is that the media does not have a responsibility to the viewer. They have a responsibility to their shareholder, and their responsibility is to generate as many eyeballs watching that program as possible or reading that paper as possible. So that, and it's sad because that is, we've lost this objective journalism that we used to have, or at least, for many years. I worked with a lot of good journalists back in the day when I was with the Coast Guard, and it was weird because like they didn't trust the government. They would ask us questions, right? And then when COVID happened, it was like, shut up and trust the government. I'm like, what? Like you told me, well, you never trusted me when I was a spokesman for the Coast Guard. Like, what are you talking about? Now you're telling me to shut up and trust the government? Like, this is wrong. The journalism rule is like, always, if your mom says that she loves you, go ahead and get a second source. Like, you're not supposed to take anybody's word for anything. And it's sad that we don't have an objective, verifiable news outlet that reports just objectively anymore. I'd love to see one on both sides, because Fox News is just as bad as CNN on the opposite side. Yeah. And, Brian made a good point earlier, and I want to go back to that for a second. And he said something, and if I misspoke, I apologize. But I was talking about how Biden and the Dems were doing this to America, but it's not just them. It's the uniparty. And I don't know that there is evil. Maybe they are as evil, but I don't know if it's evil or if it's their own self-interest of trying to maintain power. But
I think it's the party of self-interest. That's actually what the uniparty is.
Right.
In my opinion. Yeah.
And they're willing to do whatever it takes to maintain power.
Yes.
And continue that business. And in the process, if it means selling our country down the road, so be it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sad. So
yeah.
That's why I'm running. I'm running to hold these people accountable.
Okay. I don't think she's coming back.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't think she's coming back. She had a lot of all right. So thank you so much, James Judge. Thank you so much, Jennifer Barbosa. And I'd be glad to do something like this again. Maybe stick to one subject next time instead of us bringing in so many. But I hope you guys have a good night. And do you, Elena or Vanessa, have anything to say before we go?
No, just thank you so much for making the time. I know it was started off a little rocky, but we made it through, and it was good. It was really good hearing from both candidates.
Yep. Thank you. And if you want to leave your phone number in chat so we can all save it, James, so we can all hold you accountable when you.
Elena doesn't play, James. She's going to be the one on your inbox there.
There you go.
Okay. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one. God bless.